A U.S. Tax Website Guide. Chapter 1. The Internal Revenue Service. U.S. Federal Tax Code. tns.lcs.mit.edu/uscode. formulab.ch/usdax/usdax.html, US Tax Code Online, US Tax Code Online. law.cornell.edu/uscode/26, Tax Code. findlaw.com/01topics/35tax/index.html, Tax Law. Income Tax Resources. Books about taxes are at hashtag 336.20-90, 343.05 to hashtag 343.7105, hashtag 347.303 and hashtag 352.44 at the library, HJ 2361 to HJ 4662 and K 5759 K 5864 of the Library of Congress System and the Government Documents section. Internal Revenue Service. 1111 Constitution Avenue, NW, Washington, D.C. 20224. 202-566-5000. 800 Tax Form. 800-829-1040. 800-424-1040. 877-777-4778. 888-2 Pay tax by credit card. 800-777-4778, Problem Hotline. 800-829-4059, Hearing Impaired. 800-428-4732, Hearing Impaired. Fax, 703-487-4160. irs.gov. irs.treasury.gov. irs.gov/form_pub/pubs.html. Simply call the IRS at 800 Tax Form and ask for either a complete business tax kit or individual pamphlets. Free tax education programs are conducted at various libraries and college campuses throughout the country. If you need a copy of an old tax return, the IRS will sell it you for $15. irs.gov/localcontacts/index.html, IRS contact page and click on your state. You'll find filing information and a phone number for live assistance. Tax.gov. irs.gov. irs.gov/file, file online. irs.gov/taxtopics. irs.gov/taxtopics/tc101.html. irs.gov/e-file/article/0, $118986,00.html, list of free or cheap IRS recommended filing services. irs.gov/individual/page/0, $ID=14806,00.html, withholding calendar. irs.gov/individual/article/0, $ID=109754000.html, tax counseling for the elderly. irs.gov/newsroom/article/0, $ID=1061890.00.html, child care tax credit. irs.gov/individual/article/0, $ID=96406,00.html, earned income tax credit. irs.gov/taxtopics/tc607.html, adoption tax credit. taxation.lawyers.com. irs.gov/taxtopics, tax preparation tutorial. irs.gov/newsroom. irs.gov. irs.gov/elec_svs/eftps.html, pay by phone or computer. irs.gov/formspub/index.html, IRS forms, publications. irs.gov/prod/tax_edu/teletax/TC425, passive loss rules in business or investing. Tax fraud line. 800-829-0433. Report tax fraud. Teletax. 800-554-4477. 800-829-4477, number 750. Teletax is a recorded system where you call then listen to specific topics of your choosing or refund information. The number is the same for every state. For a list of topics, first get publication number 910. Guide to Free Tax Services. An option is to submit your return electronically. It is more accurate and faster. Anyone who usually submits a 1040, 1040A or 1040EZ can file in this way. You must fill out a Form 8453 authorizing the electronic transmission of your tax information. Many commercial tax preparation offices offer electronic filing. A fee will be charged for this service of about $25 to $50. Home computer users may file electronically through participating online services and transmitters. Check the IRS Bulletin Board at FedWorld for details, via internet to irs.gov. Call the IRS at 800-424-1041 to get the name of a commercial preparer in your area. Two booklets are number 1345. Procedures for electronic filing and number 1346. Electronic return file specifications. Telefile is a system available nationwide that allows single people who would otherwise use Form 1040EZ to file by telephone. Each call takes about 10 minutes. Refunds are mailed 3 weeks after the call. Check with your library for tax information. Also, check into the program's volunteer income tax assistance and tax counseling for the elderly, which offer help in filling out your tax returns. If you need a copy of your income tax return, fill out Form 4506, request for copy of tax form, pay about $5 or so and send it to your regional IRS office. Estate and gift tax assistance. 202-622-3000. IRS tax fax. Fax, 703-487-4160. You can get IRS tax forms faxed to you. IRS Taxpayer Service Division. 202-874-1460. 800-555-1212. They will help you in the filing of your taxes. I.R.S. for TDD users. 800-428-4732. 800-382-4059. IRS Tax Refunds. 800-424-1040. IRS Distribution Center. 800-424-3676. Pay tax by credit card. 888-2 Paydex. IRS State Tax Hotline. 800-829-1040. 800-828-4059 TDD. Every state has a tax hotline where a person will assist you with your questions. The number is the same for every state. Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. 800-424-1040. Volunteers help you file your taxes. Regional IRS Service Centers. These centers provide guidance for the small business person and general citizen in handling employee tax, withholding records, returns, sales tax, and filling out all the required forms. AK, AZ, CO, ID, MN, NV, ND, UT, WA, WY. POG 9941. Ogden, Utah 84409. 801-625-6365. CA, Hi. POG 12866. S. Fresno, California 93779. 209-454-6001. CT, ME, MA, NH, New York except NYC, RI, VT. POG 311. Andover, Massachusetts 01810. 474-681-5421. New Jersey, New York City. epub 777. Holtsville, New York, 11742. 516-654-6423. DA, MD, PA, DC, U.S. Territories. epub 69. Bensalem, Pennsylvania, 19020. 215-969-2221. In, KY, MS, NC, TN, VA, WV. epub 30309 AMF. Memphis, Tennessee, 38130. 901-365-5353. AL, FL, GA, SC. epub 48-481. Doraville, Georgia, 30362. 404-663-4264. IL, IA, MO, WI. epub 24551. Kansas City, Missouri, 64131. 816-926-5512. AR, KS, LA, NM, OK, TX. 3651 South Interregional Highway. Austin, Texas, 73301. 512-482-7501. IRS Tax Booklets. IRS Free Publications. 800-829-3676. irs.gov. First get the 2 books, number 17. Your Federal Income Tax, 330 pages, and number 910. Guide to Free Tax Services to get a complete list of publications and teletax number codes. Some of the free publications are: 1. Your Rights as a Taxpayer. 3. Tax Information for Military Personnel. 4. Student's Guide to Federal Income Tax. 15. Circular E, Employer's Tax Guide. 17. Your Federal Income Tax, 330 pp. 51. Circular A, Agricultural Employer's Tax Guide. 54. Tax Guide for U.S. Citizens and Resident Aliens Abroad. 80. Circular SS, Federal Tax Guide for Employers in the Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and the Northern Mariana Islands. 179. Federal Tax Guide for Employers in Puerto Rico. 225. Farmer's Tax Guide. 334. Tax Guide for Small Business. 349. Federal Highway Use Tax on Heavy Vehicles. 378. Fuel Tax Credits and Refunds. 448. Federal Estate and Gift Taxes. 463. Travel, Entertainment, and Gift Expenses. 501. Exemptions, Standard Deductions, and Filing Information. 502. Medical and Dental Expenses. 503. Child and Dependent Care Expenses. 504. Divorced or separated individuals. 505. Tax Withholding and Estimated Tax. 508. Educational Expenses. 509. Tax Calendars. 510. Excise Taxes. 513. Tax Information for Visitors to the United States. 514. Foreign Tax Credit for Individuals. 515. Withholding of tax on non-resident aliens and foreign corporations. 516. Tax Information for U.SS. Government civilian employees stationed abroad. 517. Social Security for members of the clergy and religious workers. 519. U.S. Tax Guide for Aliens. 520. Scholarships and Fellowships. 521. Moving Expenses. 523. Tax Information on Selling Your Home. 524. Credit for the Elderly and Disabled. 525. Taxable and non-taxable income. 526. Charitable contributions. 527. Residential rental property. 529 miscellaneous deductions. 530 tax information for first-time homeowners. 531 reporting income from tips. 533 self-employment tax. 534 depreciation. 535 business expenses. 536 net operating losses. 537 installment sales. 538 accounting periods and methods. 539 employment taxes. 541 tax information on partnerships. 542 tax information on corporations. 544 sales and other dispositions of assets. 547 non-business disasters, casualties, and thefts. 550 investment income and expenses. 551 guide of assets. 552 record keeping for individuals and a list of tax publications. 553 highlights of recent tax changes. 554 tax information for older Americans. 555 community property and federal income tax. 556 examination of returns, appeal rights, and claims for refund. 557 tax-exempt status for your organization. 559 survivors, executors, and administrators. 560 retirement plans for the self-employed. 561 determining the value of donated property. 564 mutual fund distributions. 570 tax guide for individuals with income from U.S. possessions. 571 tax-sheltered annuity programs for employees of public schools and certain tax-exempt organizations. 575 pension and annuity income. 578 tax information for private foundations and foundation managers. 583 taxpayers starting a business. 584 non-business disaster, casualty, and theft loss workbook. 587 business use of your home. 589 tax information on S corporations. 590 individual retirement accounts. 594 understanding the collection process. 595 tax guide for commercial fishermen. 596 earned income credit. 597 information on the U.S.-Canada tax treaty. 598 tax on unrelated business income of exempt organizations. 686 certification for reduced tax rates in tax treaty countries. 721 tax guide to U.S. civil service retirement benefits. 850 English-Spanish glossary of words used in IRS publications. 901 U.S. tax treaties. 904 interrelated computations for estate and gift taxes. 907 information for persons with handicaps and disabilities. 908 bankruptcy and other debt cancellation. 909 alternative minimum tax for individuals. 910 guide to free tax services. 911 tax information for direct sellers. 915 Social Security benefits and equivalent railroad retirement benefits. 917 Business use of a car. 919 Is my withholding correct? 924 Reporting of real estate transactions to the IRS. 926 Employment taxes for household employers. 929 Tax rules for children and dependents. 936 Home mortgage interest deduction. 937 Business reporting. 938 Real estate mortgage investment conduits reporting information and other collateralized debt obligations. 939 Pension general rule, non-simplified method. 946 How to begin depreciating your property. 947 Power of attorney and practice before the IRS. 950 who must file gift or estate taxes. 953 international tax information for businesses. 1004 identification numbers under ERISA. 1045 information for tax practitioners. 1212 list of original issue discount instruments. 1244 employees daily record of tips and employees report of tips to employer. 1345 procedures for electronic filing. 1346 electronic return file specifications. 1544 reporting cash payments of over $10,000 received in a trade or business. 1546 How to use the problem resolution program of the IRS. Chapter 2. Tax filing scams. Pennies on the dollar tax services scam. Virtually all tax services you see advertised saying they can get you a deal to pay pennies on the dollar on what you owe the IRS are scams. Hire only a tax attorney or a CPA who does taxes. irs.gov/advocate. Free tax service scam. Don't fall for anyone offering free tax returns unless it's the government or some big company like H&R Block, simply because a number of con artists have already started up websites offering free tax form processing only to try to steal the tax return refund or steal your identity. Chapter 3. A tax law website guide. Tax law websites. irs.gov. asktaxmoms.com/divorce. irstaxattorney.com. articles.moneycentral.msn.com/taxes. mtc.gov, Multistate Tax Commission. tax.org. taxsites.com. irstaxattorney.com. taxpolicycenter.org. hbtlj.org, Houston Business and Tax Law Journal. taxprof.typepad.com. taxweb.com. taxalmanac.org. sisterstates.com, States Tax Directory. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/tax_law. Tax lawyer websites. taxation.lawyers.com. taxattorneys.com. attorneypages.com/586. businesstaxrecovery.com/tax_lawyers. chicagocriminaltaxattorneys.com. chicagotaxlawyers.com. denver.com/legal/business-directory/tax-lawyers. estatetaxlawyers.com. hwchicagolaw.com/pages/tax_planning.html. irstaxattorney.com. irstaxfix.com. I know several tax lawyers who have completely misled their clients in IRS matters. irstaxlawattorney.com, Los Angeles, CA. irstaxlawyers.com, Sunnyvale, CA. irstaxlawyers.org. irstaxtrouble.com, Denver, Co. law.georgetown.edu/journal/tax, The Tax Lawyer Journal. law4usa.org/tax.htm. lawyers.com. los-angeles-tax-attorneys.com. mcdonaldhopkins.com. mytaxproblem.com. preferredtaxrelief.com, 800-515-1154. san-francisco-tax-attorneys.com. taxattorneylosangeles.com. taxhelpers.com. taxlawyers.com. taxlawyers1031.com, The Tax Lawyers Exchange. taxlawyersgroup.com, Los Angeles, CA. tax-lawyers-norway.com. toplawyersofamerica.com. wgin.net/tax_lawyers.html. Tax law information websites at dmoz-odp.org/society/law/legal_information/tax. Subcategories. Resources. Tax law journals. Weblogs. Lawyers and law firms. Products. AskTaxGuru.com, Ask Tax Guru, forum for discussion of tax issues. ato.gov.au, Australian Taxation Office, tax information for individuals, companies, and organisations, from the Tax Department of the Australian Federal Government. inc.com/guide/legal, inc.com, information and resources on law and taxation for small businesses and entrepreneurs. irs-audit.net, IRS audit information, how to prepare, what to expect, the different types of audits, and taxpayers' rights during an audit. irs.gov, IRS, the U.S. government agency responsible for tax collection and tax law enforcement. Tax-tables.com, Boondocks Incorporated, compilation of U.S. withholding and unemployment tax rates. Taxmama.com, TaxMama, articles on a broad range of tax subjects. TaxResourceGroup.com, the Tax Resource Group, tax research, consulting and research for attorneys, CPAs, and EAS. Uncleft.com, Uncle Fed's Tax Board, providing information on the United States tax system, filing a tax return, and problems that may be encountered by taxpayers. Tax lawyer websites at dmoz-odp.org/society/lawyers_and_law_firm/taxation_law. Subcategories: Asia, Europe, North America, Oceania, South America. Related categories: 1. Canada Tax Lawyers, CanadianTaxLawyer.com, DwyerTaxLaw.com, Dwyer Tax Lawyers, Victoria firm devoted to tax law and estate planning. FellsKY.com, Fellisky Flynn, Calgary firm, acting as tax counsel to national and international corporations, and to their legal, accounting and financial advisors in all aspects of corporate tax planning. LesperanceAssociates.com, Lesperance and Associates, tax-efficient citizenship, residence, and domicile solutions. U.S. tax lawyers at odp.org/society/law/services/lawyers_and_law_firms/taxation_north_americas/united_states. Click Estate. USDAXShield.com. Chapter 4. A Tax Website Guide 1. Tax articles at thebalancemoney.com/taxes-4073970. Many free articles. Tax Advisors Info. ACATcredentials.org, 888-289-2228, 703-549-2228, Trade Group of Accredited Tax Advisors. CRIMeTime.com, investigative books like the book Financial Investigations, about how the IRS investigates people. Handarblock.com, major tax company. ICAccounting.com, list of accountants. irs.treasury.gov/plain/bus_info/tax_pro/index.html, Tax Professionals Corner. NAIA.org, 301-212-9608, National Association of Enrolled Agents. NatPtax.com, 800-242-3430, Association of Tax Practitioners. NACTP.org, Association of Computerized Tax Processors. NatPtax.com, Association of Tax Practitioners. National Association of Enrolled Agents. 6000 Executive Boulevard, 205. Rockville, Maryland 20852. 800-424-4339. NAIA.org. Get the name and address of a qualified person in your area who can do complicated tax returns. National Society of Accountants. Accreditation Council for Accountancy and Taxation. 1010 North Fairfax Street, Alexandria, Virginia 22314. 703-549-6400. NSPA.org. Get a list of accredited schools. National Tax Training School. 4, Melnick Drive, Monsey, New York, 10952. 800-914-8138. natax.com. Learn to prepare taxes and get a job during tax time. Tax planning websites. The purpose of tax planning is to pay as little federal income tax as legally possible. 360financialliteracy.org/financial topics/tax planning. aarp.org/money/tax-ide. allexperts.com, look up tax planning. april15.com/tax_planning.html. articles.moneycentral.msn.com/taxes/home.aspx. bankrate.com/brm/edax/news/tax-guide. btiprofessional.com, tax newsletter, tax help in Southern California. businesshelp.com/tax/planning.asp. creativetaxplanner.com. dndcpa.com/idp/deductions.htm, DHOF, and DHOF, tax planning and professional help. ehow.com, how-to information on tax planning. evangelista.net, certified tax accountants, New Jersey. hrblock.com. hrblock.com/taxes/tax_tips/index.html. lajoyacpa.com. longview.com/tax. marjcsystems.com. moneycentral.msn.com/tax/home.asp. mytaxproblem.com, tax attorneys provide help. personalfinance.byu.edu. preferredtaxrelief.com, 800-515-1154, money, settle fast. quicken.intuit.com/taxes. sandiegotaxlaw.com. sandiegotaxservice.com/tax-resource/irs-publications.html. stephenlnelson.com, Washington State. tax-business.com. Taxes. Dead website, try.dash.com, thoughtco.com, thebalancemoney.com/od/get_tax_help_solve_you_irs_tax_troubles.htm. taxes.change.gov. taxhelpers.com. taxhelpers.com/tax-planning.html. taxhelpplus.com. taxplanning.com. walletpop.com/blog. Tax publications for sale. Eden Press. 11623 Slater Street. FDN. Valley, California 92728. 800-338-8484. edenpress.com. Good catalog of off-the-books books. 4walls8windows.com. 800-788-3123. Book How to Beat the IRS at Its Own Game, Strategies to Avoid and Survive an Audit by Amir D. Axel. Commerce Clearing House. CCH Incorporated. 4025 Peterson Avenue. Chicago, Illinois 60646. 773-583-8500. 800-248-3248. cch.com. Tax Reports, Taxes Magazine. Kiplinger's Tax Letter. 1729 H. St. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20006. 800-544-0155. Kiplinger.com. Laissez-faire Books. 7123 Interstate 30. Number 42. Little Rock, Arkansas 72209. 800-326-0996. Fax, 501-975-3651. laissezfairebooks.com. lfb.org, lfb.com. Libertarian Books. Research Institute of America. 117 East Stevens Avenue. Valhalla, New York 10595. 431-9025. Many books and reports about taxes. Tax analysts. 800-955-3444. Tax Hotline Newsletter. Tax Audit Newsletter. 55 Railroad Avenue, Greenwich, Connecticut, 06836. 800-288-1051. Tax Hotline Newsletter. POG 58464. Boulder, Colorado, 80321-8464. Tax Reform Research Group. 215 Pennsylvania Avenue, SE, Washington, D.C. 20003. 202-544-1710. Tax-Wise Money. Fortune Publishing. 702 Cathedral Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21201. T. Rowe Price. Reduce Your Taxes Book. 800-831-1417. TRowePrice.com. Free Kit. U.S. Government Printing Office. POG 371954. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15250. 202-512-1800. Fax, 202-512-2250. access.gpo.gov/su_docs. CD-ROM about taxes, 648-094-00004-3. You can buy the CD-ROM of all IRS pamphlets for $25. Warren Lamont. Park SQ. Building. 31 St. James Ave, Boston, Massachusetts, 02116. 800-950-1210. Tax Resolution Services. TaxSolutionsGroup.net. WallandAssociates.net. Chapter 5. A Tax Website Guide to Tax Services Info/Tax Professionals. Some tax services and unemployment insurance services for business and home business employers are: NatPtax.com, National Association of Tax Practitioners. NatPtax.com/classified_ads.html, National Association of Tax Professionals. FixMyIRSDebt.com, 877-475-0646. Econotax.com, 800-748-9106, Tax Preparation. ElectronicTaxFilers.com, 800-945-9277, File returns electronically. JacksonHewitt.com, 800-475-2904, Tax Preparation. LedgerPlus.com, 888-643-1348, Tax Preparation, Accounting. LibertyTax.com, 800-790-3863, Tax Preparation. PeopleStax.com, 800-984-1040, Tax Preparation. SmallBizPros.com, 800-323-7292, Tax Preparation, Accounting. Breedlove. 800-723-9961. GTM. 888-432-7972. Homework Solutions. 800-626-4829. Tax Resources Incorporated. 888-82 Audit. Prepaid Tax Service. Tax Software Info. TurboTax.intuit.com/taxfreedom, free copy of their tax preparation software. If you make less than $31,000 a year or were active duty military last year with an AGI of less than 57,000 and lived in AL, AR, AZ, GA, IA, ID, KY, ME, MN, MO, MS, New York, NC, ND, OK, or RI, SC, VT or WV. ParsonsTech.com, Inuit.com, and SecureTax.com will do your taxes online and file your form for a fee. 1099convey.com, 1099 software, Specialize in 1099 software. 1099pro.com. 1099pro.com, 1099 Pro software. abacusetaxsoftware.com. accountabilitysoftware.com. atxform.com. denvertax.com, software for tax pros. directtax.com. efs.com. sentia-soft.com/beldercare.htm, Essentia Software, Eldercare Taxes. Calculate employment taxes for your eldercare provider with NannyPay. ey.com/us/tax. filesfa.net. hrblock.com. intuit.com, Quick and Personal Tax Guide. intuit.com/turbotax. kiplinger.com. lamsontech.com. ortax.com, Ortax for tax professionals. mediawintax.com. ortax.com. pcdi.com, course in tax preparation. saberpro.com. saxtax.com, Florida. securetax.com. securetax.com, Secure Tax. smallbizmanager.com/products/page software. tosscforce.com. taxcut.com. taxformpro.com. taxprep.com. taxasoft.com. taxsoftware.net. taxcease.com. taxware.com. taxworks.com. turbotax.com. winfiler.com. Kiplinger Tax Cut. 800-365-1546. kiplinger.com. parsonstech.com. 800-223-6925. TurboTax Software. Macintax. 800-446-8848. 800-964-1040. TurboTax.com. Free or cheap tax filing. freetaxusa.com, tax resource including tips, tax forms. aarp.org/taxide/home, 888-227-7669, free tax help for seniors. irs.gov, complete list of free or cheap IRS recommended filing services. clarkhoward.com, Clark's Guide to Low-Cost Tax Filing Information. taxact.com, prepare and file your federal tax return for free regardless of high income. Chapter 6. A Tax Website Guide 3. Major tax websites. Books about taxes are at hashtag 336.20-90, 343.05 to hashtag 343.71-73, hashtag 347.303 and hashtag 352.44 at the library, HJ 2361 to HJ 4662 and K 5759 to K 5864 of the Library of Congress System and the Government Documents section. Taxsites.com, federal, state and local taxes. mtc.gov, Multistate Tax Commission, links to all state tax debts. Tax websites 1. taxprof.typepad.com. irs.treasury.gov, Internal Revenue Service. taxmap.ntis.gov/taxmap/tmhome.htm, IRS Tax Map. taxpayersalliance.com. employmenttax.com. wyotax.org, Wyoming Taxpayers Association. taxcreditforum.com. taxact.com, file your federal tax return for free regardless of income. taxfoundation.org. ctj.org. zoomitin.com/article/irs+tax+help. Tax websites 2. thebalancemoney.com. kiplinger.com/members/tax links. taxsites.com, tax and accounting sites. 1031tax.us. 1040.com. 5010giri.com, 800 tax laws. abctaxcenter.com, accountantspittsburgh.com, accountantsworld.com/default.aspx, aetaxes.com, aicpa.org, amtax.com, armchairmillionaire.com/tax, articles.moneycentral.msn.com/taxes/advice/your real tax rate 40.aspx, articles.moneycentral.msn.com/taxes/home.aspx, questions and answers with a tax attorney. AskTaxMoms.com, AskTaxMoms.com, ATR.org, Americans for Tax Reform, best.com/tildefmexpat/html/taxsites.html, Bloomberg.com, bna.com/tm, bnatax.com, business.gov/guide/taxes, small business taxes, butex.com/taxes, carrollcc.edu/events/vita_tax_prep.asp, free income tax preparation, cch.com, tax books, cctax.com, sensibleaccounting.com, sensible accounting, tax problem resolution services, cfo.com, cleargy.taxnet.com/cleargy_financial_management.htm, cumbrian.com, cuyahoga-library.org/tax, don'tmesswithtaxes.typepad.com, dtonline.com, dtonline.com/tnv, dynamictaxoptimizer.com, ebizbd.com/tax_preparation.php, e-file-online.com, el.com/elinks/taxes, el.com/totheweb/taxes, eldercpa.com, Arizona, en.wikipedia.org/wiki/job-seeking_expense_tax_deductions, expresstaxrefund.com, ey.com/tax, ey.com/tax/survival, easytax.com, fairmark.com, Fairmark Press Tax Guide for Investors, Taxes, fairmark.com, Investing and Taxes, fairtax.com, Sales tax instead of income tax, fairtaxesforall.org, fast-taxes.com, filetax.com, filetax.com, 800-FILE-TAX, finance.yahoo.com/taxes, finance.yahoo.com/taxes/checklist, Financial Fortress, financiallywired.com/financiallywired/taxes, flattax.house.gov, formilab.ch/uscode/26USC, US tax code online, formilab.ch/uscode/26USC/USDAX.html, US tax code, formilab.ch/usdax.html, formilab.ch/usdax/usdax.html, IRS tax code, freeadvice.com, freetaxstrategies.com, graymail.com/taxdip, gsu.edu/acc writing skills for the tax professional, handarblock.com, hrblock.com, harvardaccounting.com/publications.html, henderco.com/taxchat.html, hrblock.com/tax/tax.ips, hrblock.com/taxes, information about the IRS, intelligenttaxes.com, intuit.com/turbotax, tax websites 3, invesco.com, irsproblems.com, jaxiskco.com, Houston, jacksonhewitt.com, jacksonhewitt.com/tax resource center, jklasser.com, tax and finance books, joetaxpayer.com, jtax.com, kiplinger.com/tax, lib.uci.edu/online/subject/subpage.php?subject=use taxes, logitax.com, elovotax.nl, lotax.com, maxwell.com/tax, mbslaw.com, mcp.com/mgr/lasser, mdtaxes.org, Maryland Taxpayers Association, money.cnn.com/pf/taxes, moneycentral.msn.com/content/taxes, moneycentral.msn.com/content/taxes/preparation tips, moneycentral.msn.com/tax, moneycentral.msn.com/tax/home.asp, moneycentral.msn.com/taxi-nfo/fedpub.asp, moneyzavetips.com, multiplastreamsofincome.com, keyword, mytaxplanner.com, naya.org/member portal, National Association of Enrolled Agents, natptax.com, National Association of Tax Practitioners, nesteg.idd.is.com/irs/irsdown.html, netax.com, nalo.com, nalo.com/chunktax/tax, nalo.com/encyclopedia, ntu.org, National Taxpayers Union, ntu.org/tax-basics, officialpayments.com, omer.acg.uic.edu/home, omer.cba.neu.edu, onetax.com, online-education.net/courses/tax-preparation-courses.html, onlinehistory.cch.com, tax websites for partnerships: jandmtaxes.com, North Las Vegas, payroll-taxes.com, covers unemployment rates, labor laws, local taxes, federal taxes, pbs.org, the show Frontlines February 19, 04 edition called Tax Me If You Can, people.howstuffworks.com/income-tax.htm, how income taxes work, prodigy.net/ag Kalman, professionals, protaxconsulting.com, qfn.com/tax center, quicken.com, quicken.com/tax center, quicken.com/taxes, refdesk.com/taxhelp.html, tax preparation guides, refdesk, ariaahmed.com, riatax.com, 800-431-9025, tax books, rothera.com, scube.com/tax/index.html, scube.com/tax/tax.html, securetax.com, sfsu.edu/togs, tax for grad students, smartmoney.com/ac/tax, smartmoney.com/tax, smartmoney.com/tax/index.cfm, smartmoney.com/taxmatters/index.cfm, smarttaxinfo.com, smbiz.com, software-tax.jorby.com/pro-series-software-tax, stubbslaw.com, sullivanconsulting.com, tafl.com, taxpayers against frivolous lawsuits, tauslandandfilm.com, 800 barriers, tax.help.big.refunds.truelocal.com, tax.org, 800-955-3444, tax directories, tax.org, articles and information geared to taxact.com, taxactonline.com, taxadmin.org, Federation of Tax Administrators, taxadmin.org/fta/forms.ssi, state tax form links, taxanalysts.com, taxattack.com/tips.htm, taxattack, tax tips. taxattorney.com. taxback.com, get tax refund early. taxbase.com. taxca.com. taxcity.com. taxconnection.com. taxcut.com. taxes.cc. taxesiworld.com/the-partner-sites.php. taxesq.com/taxinfo. taxexact.com. taxformprocessing.com/tax/faq/tax.htm. taxfoundation.org. taxfoundation.org, nonprofit resource. taxfreedom.com. taxhelper.org. taxhelponline.com, 834 Notics. taxland.com. taxlawdictionary.com. taxlibrary.com. tax-lien-help.info. taxlinks.com. taxloopholes.com, 888-592-4769. taxman.com. taxmancpa.com. taxmap.ntis.gov. taxmoms.com. taxnews.com. tax-news.com. taxnewsletters.com. taxopedia.com. taxpage.com. taxplanet.com. taxprep101.com. taxproblem.org. tax websites 5. taxprof.typepad.com. taxprofet.com. taxprofit.com. taxreductioninstitute.com. freetaxhelponline.com. taxresolution.com. taxresources.com. taxreturns-online.netgate.net. taxrice.com. taxsites.com. taxsites.com/associations. taxsites.com/states.html. taxspeaker.com. taxstrategies.com. taxcease.com. taxtopics.net. taxweb.com. taxwisegiving.com. taxx.com. taxz.info. thepapertiger.com. theisc.com. thetaxman.net. thevanguard.org/thevanguard/issues/flat tax/horror e-stories. thompson.com, tax books. track.syr.edu/tracyr/index.html, transactional records access clearinghouse, this site gathers. trainotit.com. tiroprice.com. turbotax.com. turbotax.intuit.com. turbotax.intuit.com/tax_help/tax_preparation_checklist.jhtml. unclef.com, unclef tax help, easy access to state and federal tax forms. unclef.com/tax-help/irs-tt/tt-index.html. uni.edu/schmidt/bookmark.html. usa.gov/citizen/topics/benefits.shtml. usa.gov/citizen/topics/money_taxes.shtml. usdaexcourt.gov. ustaxpayers.org. vanguard.com. vertexinc.com/resource center/tax links/links.aspggu.edu/school_of_taxation/tax_news income-tax-pune.com. village.ios.com/taxdalc. willyancey.com. www.ebtax.com.